1. Hello, I'm Specialist Ward, and today I will be giving a briefing on the different styles of leadership. Now, this is an unclassified briefing, and I'd like to thank everyone for being here, as well as my SGL, Sergeant Ryder. Alright, next slide, please. Alright, this is our agenda for the class. We will be going over what is leadership, and we will discuss transactional leadership, autocratic leadership, transformational leadership, delegative leadership, and servant leadership. Alright, next slide, please. Alright, now there are many different styles, but we will only be discussing 5 different ones today, and every Army leader should know different styles of leadership because it will influence and help them whenever they need to lead their own soldiers, because not every scenario requires the same style of leadership. And every leader has their own weaknesses and strengths with different styles. So some styles won't suit them at all, and others will be very effective for them. Alright, next slide, please. Now, what is leadership? Leadership is the art of motivating a group of people to accomplish a common goal. According to FM 6-22, Army leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. Now, every leader needs to find a different way to influence different people in different scenarios. Like I said, every style will not suit them. Not every style will suit every scenario. Next slide, please. All right, transactional leadership. These leaders provide subordinates with goals, establish project checks, provide performance reports, and motivate them with rewards based on a recognized system. So this is something the Army does because we recognize those who follow orders who do well, and those who do not follow orders who don't do well are punished. So just like this leadership, it is rewards and punishments for doing as they are told. If you do well, you are praised. Eventually, you are promoted and become a leader of your own. If you do not, then eventually you leave the military. Now, as I said, built on following orders and having a clear chain of command. Now, it's suitable for situations where there has to be immediate reaction to orders is required. So, if you are in the field or deployed, then this is a good type of leadership because every order needs to be followed unless it's unlawful. But most orders need to be followed quickly and effectively. So this type of leadership works well in those scenarios. It does not work with free thinkers or creativity though, because it is very focused on leadership and following orders. It doesn't allow for those under it, subordinates, to come up with their own solutions to problems. So creativity is not big with this leadership. But it does focus on leadership, organization, and performance. Next slide, please. Next is autocratic leadership, which is similar. This leadership style gives leaders complete control over the decision-making process. Now, this is usually focused on one leader in complete control of every decision. Now, this works well in environments involving life and death decisions. So again, it works well in deployment scenarios where every order needs to be followed or someone could get killed. So again, this leadership does not foster a lot of creativity or free thinking because it relies so much on following orders and getting the mission completed in this one way. Now, this type of leader, and this can lead to resentment and distrust from subordinates. But a good leader using this leadership style will still consider their subordinates and listen to them whenever they bring good information and insight into helping complete the mission. Now, this type of style of leadership is expected to have a high success rate, and the leader is expected to make the correct decision. Because in this style of leadership, the leader is completely in control and has to take total responsibility for every decision. So if they make the wrong decision, it could get a lot of people killed. So this can be a very stressful style of leadership and not very well suited for long-term scenarios. All right, next slide, please. All right, next we have transformational leadership. Now this is leadership by example. It works well for a platoon sergeant who works closely with their soldiers, because this style of leadership doesn't work well for a leader who is some distance away from their soldiers. So a commander who's far away from one squad wouldn't be able to use this style of leadership. Now this style of leadership does work well in a changing environment and encourages subordinates to provide their own solutions. So it fosters a lot of creativity and free thinking between subordinates and their leaders, which can be very good in scenarios where the leader maybe doesn't know how to solve a problem, but a subordinate would feel more comfortable coming to that leader and giving them a solution. Now, this type of leader inspires their subordinates through rapport, inspiration, and empathy, because again, they work closely with the soldiers and lead them through their example. So they do the same things and they give their best effort to inspire them and lead them to complete the mission. All right, next slide, please. Next, we have delegative leadership. This is leadership through delegation and allowing subordinates to work on their own. Now, this works best with experienced and competent soldiers. So, if the unit is made of a bunch of new people who don't know each other very well, it's not exactly the best style of leadership that can be used, because they don't know each other, they may not know what their responsibilities are or what they need to do to accomplish whatever their mission is. And since it involves a lot of working on their own and being away from the leader, then it would not work well in that scenario. It does allow for a lot of creativity and free thinking, and because it has so much space between the leader and the subordinate is told to complete a mission however they see fit, and then they are allowed to do whatever they think is necessary to complete the mission. But if the team does not have a clear direction or lacks motivation, then this can be a bad style of leadership to use. All right, next slide, please. All right, next we have servant leadership. Now this style of leadership is based on meeting the needs of the followers. This is a style every NCO has to use at some point in their career, because every NCO is responsible for soldiers and responsible for helping them improve and become leaders of their own. So this is a style they all should use. Now, this leader prioritizes improving the personal and professional development of their subordinates. And it can result in a happier, more effective, and productive team, because the leader talks to their soldiers, helps them improve, and in turn, the soldier gives their best effort to complete the mission for the leader. Now, it does require a certain amount of trust between the leader and the subordinate, because in order for the soldier to feel comfortable enough to come to the leader and tell them what they need and how they want to improve, then until that happens, the leader cannot exactly work to their full potential with this style of leadership. All right, next slide, please. All right, in conclusion, every style of leadership has their own strengths and weaknesses, just like every leader has their own strengths and weaknesses. So taking the time to look at the different styles of leadership to know them allows every leader to make the decision in whatever scenario they are in to choose the correct style of leadership that will benefit them and their soldiers to complete the mission. All right, next slide, please. All right, are there any questions? All right, thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank my SGL Sergeant Ryder for being here, and that concludes my briefing.